Well, teammate is it's a group effort. It's a bonded partnership that you have with your contemporaries, your superiors, your subordinates. You have the same values, you have the same aspirations, and the same focus on the mission. I don't know if it's more important. It's more important now because it has greater visibility. But to those of us who served in Special Forces, it was always a very important thing. Most of us didn't take it too seriously because we realized we're Special Forces, but everybody else serving in uniform in their own way are special. The surgeon that's operating you, operating on an operating table on you, is pretty darn special. The young man that drives a Bradley vehicle, a $1 million+ vehicle, he's pretty special too. So we're all in our own ways kind of special, but this was part of our title. That's how we identified ourselves, Special Forces, and sometimes we had to clarify it because we were confused with others. We had the Green Beret. Well, it was an exhilarating feeling. It's a sense of accomplishment. We had a different process than we have today, but the end result is the same. You joined a special fraternity, a special group of people that is about as close to a family as it's going to come. Yes, yes, I would feel very comfortable using that as the term brotherhood because it is a brotherhood. We're not the only ones. We don't have a corner on that market. The Marines have a brotherhood of their own. But yes, I think brotherhood is an appropriate term that most of us would identify with. Well, if I had to identify something that I thought this was what we're all about, is a moment that others wouldn't see it the same way. We were stationed in Berlin, a Special Forces unit. It was a black unit. And I was looking for ways to accomplish the mission. And I went down in a subterranean system that was off limits. And my superiors found out that I was down there without permission, off limits. And it actually resulted in me receiving a letter of reprimand. And so, although there was a dark side to this, an unpleasant side to this, I felt that we were mission focused. We did what we thought was right. And sometimes we push the envelope, and when we do, we have to live with the consequences. Well, a young man who finishes the Q course doesn't have to look back. We're not looking back towards the Revolutionary War when we talk about Special Forces. We're a rather young regiment. And many of those that served and started in this organization on the twilight time, but Aaron Banks was alive during most of our service. It's current, it's relevant. We may talk about different geographical areas. Guys nowadays feel very comfortable talking about Iraq, Afghanistan. And my generation spoke of Vietnam and other places we went to. And the similarities of our experiences are greater than our differences. And I think when we look back at our past, we can look back with pride. Sometimes the operational tempo is so fast that we don't have time to sit back and reflect. And I would hope that those of us who are fortunate enough to be selected would have an opportunity to visit with the units, remind them what was in the past, and prepare them better for the future. Well, I have, because even though I've been retired, my connection to the military is very current to this day. I have a son-in-law, John Batiste, who was a Major General, commanded the 1st Infantry Division in Iraq. My other son-in-law, Colonel Joseph Smith, who worked in SWCS, he was the Chief of Staff in SWCS, is around. I see him daily. His son is aspiring to go to Special Forces. He's going to be commissioned 2nd Lieutenant here. Not quite ready for it, but he will be in a couple of years. Right now, in assessment and selection, my granddaughter married a young guy. He's a captain who's going out for Special Forces. So not only have I stayed connected because I'm still doing some work for the ARSOF community, but I'm very closely connected because I have family members who are still involved and carrying on with the tradition. I'm not sure I know what it means. Whoever came up with it, I can only guess. The idea is that once you've served, the Marine Corps has that philosophy, once a Marine, always a Marine. It's probably a takeoff on that, so there's nothing original about it. But I think even though somebody did not coin a phrase, most of us thought that way. Once you serve in Special Forces, you're always Special Forces. And, and you look back with pride. This is more so than since we've had the branch. There's a much greater identification. And I'll have people sometimes approach me, and they're my age, some of them even a little older, and mention the fact that they were in Special Forces. And so I think it's a good thing. It's fosters pride, and it fosters commitment. Well, the only permanent thing in life is change. And so we were fortunate enough to have SWCS commanders who are visionaries. They prepare people for the unknown, for the future. They have been very good at foreseeing the future. No one has a corner on that market. No one is sure that we have it just right. But we do what we think puts us in the best position where we can pivot with some minor adjustments and be very relevant in whatever the future throws us at. A lot of things haven't changed. Language training has been part of our culture since the very beginning when Aaron Banks stood up the regiment. So we learn different languages, we focus in different areas, but many of the basic fundamental things with, through, and by has stayed with us. We just adapt to new conditions. Technology requires us to make different changes. We've acquired new missions that we have not had before. When Aaron Banks stood up the 10th Special Forces, we had one mission, unconventional warfare. That's all we did. And then when we had insurgencies popping up and President Kennedy seen a need to be prepared for that kind of warfare, we had a visionary in General Yarborough who took us into the counterinsurgency, which is the other side of that coin. And as we've gone on and we had other missions that we acquired or were assigned to us, we've had SWCS commanders who adapted the skills, but we've always looked for great guys that have tenacity, perseverance, that are committed to this type of mission. We're not looking for Rambos, but we're looking for guys that can operate across the whole spectrum. They can be great humanitarians, or they can be ruthless killers. Yeah, well, I want you to know that I bribed every member that sits on that panel, and one of them was not going along, so I had this kid kidnapped. But other than that, I'm honored and humble to accept that honor, and I'll do the best I can.